Good morning, everyone. My name is Dennis Beach. I'm the city manager of Pompano Beach, and we're going to spend the next 15 to 20 minutes trying to describe in some level of detail what the content of this November 8th referendum is regarding the sales tax vote. What we have assembled are a number of staff. We have both the city staff and county staff here to talk about the impact of this proposed 1 cent on our communities and on our county. I believe that the experience that we've had to date indicates that this is going to be a very successful referendum if we get the information out to enough people. And that's our focus today, is to create some type of mechanism for getting that information out to the public. So with that, the folks that are going to be speaking today are Sandra King, our communications director, John Hill, our chief of police, John Jurgel, our fire chief, Brian Donovan, our deputy city manager, Barbara Blake Boy with the county, and Suzette Sybil, our finance director, and finally our assistant city manager, Greg Harrison, will be speaking. So with that, I will turn this over to Sandra King to get started.
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning. What I want to talk to you about is a penny at work sales tax. It's a surtax referendum that's going to be on the ballot on November 8th. What we've done is we've worked with the county and every other city, and we've come up with a website, which is apennyatwork.com. And what that does is it gives you everything you want to know about this penny surtax. It has an overview that you can read everything about it. It has on tabs on the front, if you look at it, it has, there you go. It's got at the top, you've got frequently asked questions and answers. You can look at the ballot itself and look at the language. There is a project list, and it drops down, and every single project in Broward County is listed with a cost associated with it, with the address. Each city is alphabetized, so you can click on P for Pompano Beach, you pick up Pompano Beach, and you see what projects there are if you're interested in that city. What's more interesting is if you look at the map, the first thing that you'll see is a big map with the green and orange, which means city and county projects, but you can drill down even further. You can click on your neighborhood, your city, and for instance, this is Pompano Beach. Each icon gives you an idea of what type of project it is, and then you can drill into your neighborhood and see on your street what project it is. When you click on it, that box will come up, and it'll tell you, this is a project that's going to be coming in your city. This is a description. This is the cost. Every single project is on that website in every city. If you have family that live in other cities, you can click on that city and see what may affect that neighborhood and things that you're interested in. We also have pictures that'll come up of the project. So you click on the box, you can drill down and see, oh wow, look at that. You know, that's going to be Centennial Park in Pompano Beach, which is really neat because now we can do weddings there and things like that. So that's how it would affect you. Lastly, you'll see all over Broward County, we've got banners going up, we've got mailers going out. This is a total education campaign by every city in Broward County to show how very important this measure is. Without further ado, I'm going to pass this on to our Major Hale, our police chief.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning, John Hale, Police Chief. I'd like to take just a few moments to educate you on one of the public safety projects involved in this program, and that involves the renovation of our Pompano Beach Police Station. Our station was built 34 years ago. And over the past 2 years, the exterior of our station was renovated. Stormproof windows were installed to shore up the outside. However, the interior of the station still is that same 34-year-old building. Unfortunately, we have had water intrusion issues, which have led to mold conditions. We have an indoor firing range that is currently inoperable because of lead contamination. And unfortunately, this necessitates me pulling our deputies off the street here in Pompano, sending them all the way to the southwest end of our county to Markham Park Firing Range to conduct their range training and firearms qualifications. So it would be a huge benefit to us to get our building renovated, our range back operational, to be able to keep our personnel here right in Pompano to go through their qualifications and training, and it would certainly improve our service delivery. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is John Jurgel. I'm the fire chief here in Pompano Beach, and I'd like to speak to you about a couple of the projects that are in this program with regards to the fire department and specifically our fire stations. 2/3 of our fire stations are nearly 50 years old. 2/3 of the fire stations that we have in this city are not functional for what we do. This program would help us address those because those stations need to be rebuilt. Our stations, much like many of the problems that we're having here, are infrastructure issues. We've had problems with sewage backing up in our stations. Our stations are not ADA compliant. Our fire stations have issues with ventilation. Our fire stations have gender issues. Just think back to what a house built 50 years ago looked like. And imagine putting a family, in our case, of 6 to 10 people in that house. 50 years ago, we had 3 or 4 people in these fire stations. Now we have 6 to 10 folks. So there aren't enough bathroom facilities. We have a dormitory-style bedroom area for multi-gender folks here. We have males and females on the fire department. We have one bathroom that they share. So it's just not functional. Our fire stations are no longer functional for our personnel. They're old, they're antiquated. They are not hardened from a hurricane standpoint. So we are not comfortable with how hurricane resilient they would be. So as you can see, all these issues would impact whether or not we can staff our stations, how long we can staff our stations, and that will affect our response times, because if we aren't in our fire stations, we have to move to another fire station, our response times will be longer. So this program is instrumental to us being able to address the issues with our fire stations and rebuilding our fire stations. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Barbara Blake-Boy. I'm the Executive Director of the Broward County Planning Council, and I'm here today to talk about the proposed projects for the county's transportation half-cent portion of the proposed surtax. On the Penny at Work site, you'll see that the proposed projects under Broward County are broken down into 4-year increments. And if you click on the detail of those, you're going to see when we're talking about transportation, we're not just talking about moving single occupancy vehicles, we're talking about transit opportunities, premium transit opportunities, pedestrian improvements, bicycle improvements, intersection improvements to make them function better for cars, transit, pedestrian, and bicyclists. We're really talking about moving people efficiently and effectively throughout the county to really impact the economy of the entire county, your city of Pompano Beach, as well as every other city. Another important thing about these proposed projects is these aren't just a list that was developed when the half penny for transportation came up. These are projects that have been approved in long-range transportation plans and short-range transportation plans. And many of these projects are unfunded for many years out. They go out to year 15 and 20. So the potential for this transportation half cent of accelerating the implementation of those projects, that's really what's going to happen here. I think it's really important to think about how we move people throughout the county. And when we're talking about transit and transportation, we're talking about buses passing by more frequently, better routes, better planned routes, more opportunities. You can make more choices as a resident or visitor of Broward County of how you want to get to different places. So that's just a quick overview of the projects. The next slide is a look at the ballot. So the first question on your ballot, because there's going to be 2, and both must pass or both must fail. The first question is related to the transportation system question. And what you'll see here is it defines transportation improvements, many of the things that we just talked about, traffic light synchronization, relieving traffic congestion, transit opportunities, intersection improvements. It also defines that this is going to be only levied for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, it would stop, and it would have to be reauthorized if it was to continue. Another important thing is it's going to be paid by residents and visitors. So everyone who's paying tax in the county, this will go for this half cent. And all proceeds will be held in trust, and there'll be an independent oversight board to make sure that it meets the legality of this ballot question. So this is the first of two questions. Both questions must pass or both must fail. Suzette's going to talk about the municipal infrastructure piece.
Thank you, Barbara. Good morning. My name is Suzette Sybil. I am the City of Pompano's Finance Director. As Barbara mentions, come November 8, voters will be asked to consider two ballot questions. The first, of course, pertains to the county's proposed half-penny transportation surtax, and the second question, which is currently on the screen, pertains to the proposed half penny to support municipality infrastructure projects. And of course, the questions are very similar. The only difference, of course, is in the first few lines, which again goes into some detail in terms of the types of projects that the half penny for the cities would be able to support. And again, that's inclusive of public safety facilities such as fire stations and police stations, roads, bridges, and recreation facilities. Now again, as I stated, the questions are very similar. I know Barbara did touch on the fact that there will be an oversight committee that's established. That means that every single project that the surtax would be supporting would have to go to this oversight board for approval just to make sure that the project is for an authorized use. Another safeguard that I do want to mention is that each city in Broward County as well will be required to establish a separate trust fund, and the surtax proceeds will need to be deposited into that trust fund, and they cannot be commingled with the general revenues of the city. In addition, on an annual basis, Pompano Beach, as well as all of the other 30 cities in the county, as well as Broward County, will be required to have an annual audit performed by an independent certified public accountant of the trust fund. So again, those are some additional safeguards that are in place. Next slide, please. A few quick facts about sales tax, which I'm not sure if most are aware. There are certain items that are exempt from sales tax, and if you do want a complete list of that exemption, you can access that on the Florida Department of Revenue's website. But most grocery items and prescription drugs, as an example, are exempt from sales taxes. What most people may also not know is that sales taxes are only applied to the first $5,000 of taxable sales. So as an example, if you were to make a large purchase, such as an automobile purchase, and it costs $15,000, the sales tax would only apply to the first $5,000 of that sale. So if the surtax, the additional 1 penny or 1% surtax were to pass, for that sale it would only cost you an additional $50. Another important fact that we like to highlight, and probably one of the most important ones, is the first bullet you see on the screen there. It's estimated that 1/3 of sales taxes collected in Broward County are derived from tourists. Now that's not surprising because it's estimated that in 2015, 15.4 million tourists visited Broward County alone. Now why is that important? Well, it's important for a number of reasons. First of all, when tourists come to Pompano Beach and the cities in the county, they impact our infrastructure assets. They use our roads, they use our bridges, they use our recreational centers, our beaches, and of course our public safety facilities and services. Right now we don't have a mechanism to allow them to contribute their fair share in the upkeep and expansion of those infrastructure assets. So the great thing about the proposed penny surtax is that it will create a financing mechanism to allow tourists to contribute up to 1/3 of the costs to expand and upkeep those infrastructure assets. The other thing to note is that many people may say, okay, that's great, tourists get to contribute, but realistically, how many tourists come to Pompano Beach? Well, the great thing is we get our fair share, but one might argue that probably more tourists currently go to Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, City of Sunrise because of the Sawgrass Mills Mall as an example. Well, the great thing about how this additional 1% will be generated and distributed is it will be collected from all of the cities in the county. It will go to the state of Florida, and it will be divvied up to all the cities in the county based on population. So again, Pompano will actually get a share of the additional sales generated in the cities such as Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, and City of Sunrise. So that's also a very great thing to note. The other thing to note is there's currently a 6% sales tax in the state of Florida, but what most people don't know is that only a minimal amount trickles down to the local level. What that means is that the state of Florida keeps the majority of that to fund their own initiatives. The great thing about the proposed 1% surtax is that 100% of the proceeds will be required to legally trickle down to the local level. So that's a very important thing to note and an important distinction. Finally, the last bullet you see up there, what does this all mean for Pompano Beach? Well, it's estimated that over the 30 years that the sales tax, the surtax would be assessed, it's estimated that Pompano Beach would yield almost $360 million over that time frame. That's an average of $10 million a year. Now, Pompano currently has over $300 million in unfunded projects that we would like to fund with this proposed surtax. Now, our objective is not to wait to yield these receipts over the 30 years. What Pompano expects to do, and what I expect a lot of the cities in the county will do, is we expect to issue surtax bonds. So we'll be able to leverage those future receipts right away. We'll go out to the marketplace, issue bonds, and we would be able to raise upwards of $100 million initially to get some of our local projects on the way pretty quickly, probably as early as next year. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian Donovan.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You heard a number of reasons of why this surtax is being issued, or why it's being presented to voters this November 8th. And again, it's being presented as two questions. Both must pass or both will fail. One thing I'd like to point out is that the economic impact of this surtax, if it were to pass. Again, this is a county-wide initiative, so we're not only talking Broward County, we're also talking all municipalities. So if it were to pass, you can see on the slide here, it would generate close to $15 billion over a 30-year period. And that's a significant amount of money. Now, with that, of course, a number of jobs would be created. And it's estimated that over 53,000 jobs would be created with this surtax. It's important to point out that out of those 53,000 jobs, these are well-paying jobs. Most of these will be construction-type jobs. These are not low-pay, low-wage jobs. These are high-wage, professional positions. So as you can imagine, that would create a significant economic impact just in Broward County. Another thing to point out, too, with this economic impact is that more than likely, at least I would guess half or more of the cities, if this were to pass, would probably go forward and bond the proceeds. That's something here we would consider in Pompano Beach as well. So that's a significant cash infusion that would be immediate in the county area. So with that said, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Greg Harrison.
Thank you, Brian. I'm Greg Harrison, Assistant City Manager, and I'm just sort of going to recap this. I want to leave you with some takeaways from the presentation. So, all of you know that the Indians and the Cubs are in the World Series, right? So can you imagine the players that last played in a World Series playoff, 1945, trying to play today? That would be called aging, right? So what we're dealing here with is aging infrastructure big time. This city is at the age where we have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be replaced. And so that's what this is all about. So the takeaways are they both must pass. Both of these ballots must pass or both will fail. And the great thing about this particular issue and this proposal is, and this is what turned the trick with the city commission, because almost a third of these proceeds would be paid by tourists and visitors. Whereas on the other hand, everything would have to be paid for vis-a-vis ad valorem taxes or property taxes. And the last thing is what Brian just covered. It's very important to remember how the economic impact will affect our communities. What Brian was talking about was all across Broward County, which includes all the county projects and the projects from the 31 cities. What we would see here in Pompano Beach with the $360 million that Suzette referred to is somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 new jobs as a result of just our projects here in Pompano Beach. So those are the things to take away, and I'm going to ask Sandra to come up and tell everyone how to get to the website and to call a live person if you want to talk about this.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Again, apennyatwork.com is the place to go for everything you want to know about it. But in some circumstances, especially older generations don't want to go online. So what the city of Pompano Beach has done is we have a live person that's volunteered to answer any questions about anything you want to know about A Penny at Work. If you call 954-786 4660, you will get a live person that will answer the phone. He has a list of all the projects and the names of people working those projects. So if there's anything he can't answer, he will get you that answer. So if there's anything you want to know, go online, give us a call. We'll be there. And lastly, I just want to thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for tuning in.